Whenever I need to look like the kind of guy who understands fashion, I cram myself into a suit that looks like it was made for some kind of European heroin addict. And for the low price of $30, you too can walk out of an H&M dressed like your Slender Man's younger brother. In fact, at prices like these, it can be more expensive to clean your clothes than it is to throw away your dirty clothes and buy all new ones. And I know that sounds like the kind of plan that was invented by some sort of 9-year-old king, but it's actually pretty close to reality, because the average garment in America is worn just 7 times before it's thrown away. And if you're thinking, well, whew, it's a good thing I donate my clothes to other people, that's not actually happening. Oh, you're donating your clothes, but that basically just means that your clothes take a little trip to the Salvation Army, where they say thank you for your service, before 90% of all clothes donated to a thrift store get rejected and sent straight to a landfill or a textile waste mill. With stores like H&M, Uniqlo, Zara, Guess, and Gap selling low-quality clothes at bargain basement prices, Americans buy an average of 68 items of clothing every year, which seems like a lot of clothes, but it's not even all the clothes, because 10% of clothing produced gets worn 0 times because it never gets bought and it just goes straight into the garbage. Not this specific garbage, obviously. This is just a visual you know what, you get it. The point is, fast fashion is so big and wasteful that it produces more CO2 than France, Germany, and the UK combined. Fast fashion is devastating to the climate, and it is a husky-sized human rights violation, but it is so profitable that it's projected to triple by 2050 unless we change something. We are currently knocking on the door of a climate catastrophe, and we need to be reducing our CO2 emissions instead of greatly increasing them. And how we deal with fast fashion may determine if we're able to avoid some of the worst parts of a climate disaster. But unlike most of the systemic causes of climate change, there's actually something you can do about fast fashion, maybe? Hi, I'm Rollie Williams, a sort of discount Burt Reynolds type and a climate science and policy grad student, and this is a video about fast fashion. Welcome to Climate Town. Now, fashion wasn't always about buying $5 dresses or trying to look like a sexy haystack. Mission very much accomplished, by the way. Before the 1800s, people either made their own clothing, bought it secondhand from slop shops, or went to their local tailors or seamstresses. In any case, they wore the garments until they fell apart or they died at the ripe old age of 29, the way God intended. So while ultra-rich people like kings, queens, or the wealthiest rooks could afford fancy fashion and trends, durable clothing was the name of the game for most people. Basically, I'd be wearing this suit until I looked like some kind of accountant that got sucked into the Jumanji game for 15 years. But then, the Industrial Revolution happened. And people who talk like this had more... People who don't talk like this were spending more time working in factories and had less time to make their own clothes. So a spike in demand for ready-made clothes was met with an abundant supply of cotton from America because of slavery. Well, demand for clothes plus a cotton supply plus new textile technology allowed clothing to be produced at a much greater scale at a lower price, allowing more people access to more types of clothing. Now, all of this new technology and money made factory owners and slave owners a fat stack of cash because they paid their workers practically nothing or actually nothing, and they profited massively from the economies of scale. Technically, slavery ended with the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865, but poor working conditions and intentionally low wages kept factory owners incredibly rich. And these cartoonishly evil men did things like lock the exits and stairwells so that their workers wouldn't be tempted to take breaks from their nightmarish working conditions or steal a pair of socks. And then on March 25th, 1911, a fire broke out in this building. And if you're hoping that maybe this isn't the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory building, you're out of luck. The workers in the factory were unable to escape the fire because the factory owners did that thing where they lock everyone in, and 146 people, mostly women between the ages of 14 and 23, were killed when they either burned alive or jumped to the pavement 8 floors below. It was tragic and it shocked the nation, and of fucking course, the factory owners ended up making money on the tragedy because of an insurance claim and some shiesty courtroom moves. 2 years later, the owner of the factory actually got caught locking the doors again, and he got the electric chair. Oh no, he got fined $20, which was the minimum allowable fine for that kind of thing. Anyway, over the next 40 years, and with the help of Francis Perkins, the Secretary of Labor under President Roosevelt, enough labor reforms were implemented that working in the fashion industry was maybe kind of okay. I mean, you weren't making chess piece money, but at least you had a weekend, insurance, time off, and best of all, the goddamn doors weren't locked. At the risk of leaving out a ton of context, everything I've described so far is traditional, slow fashion. Clothing is designed, manufactured, shipped, and sold domestically. And as recently as I'm not gonna die for this video. As recently as 1990, more than half the clothes bought in America were also made in America. But between 1990 and now, so much manufacturing went overseas that America now makes less than 2% of its clothes. And now almost every item of clothing worn in America has to first make a CO2 intensive international trip before anyone wants to dress up to go to brunch, or church, or baseball game. What do people do anymore? And we're not talking about one little international trip to Paris and back. Since the only thing manufacturers really care about is minimizing production costs, the life of a shirt might begin with cotton grown in India, then get sent to Mexico to be processed, then get sent to Bangladesh to be sewn together, then get sent to Colombia to have the tag sewn on, then get sent to Miami to be distributed to a store in Georgia. But what's a little 1,000 tons of heat-trapping gas in the atmosphere if it means you could buy this very real shirt that says, "Fridays we be like squad goals." And just to be clear, clothing manufacturers didn't move their factories to other countries so that they could make better clothes. They did it so they could go back to treating their workers like they did in 1911. Now, since companies didn't have to pay for vacations or health insurance or fire extinguishers, their profits shot through the roof like a drunken cowboy. Hey, are people gonna actually get that cowboy line? What's up? The cowboy line. You just said the shot through the roof line? Yeah, it's like the #1 cowboy thing, where they get drunk at a bar, they got too much whiskey, and they're like, woo, whiskey, you know? They shoot up into the roof.
I think that's prospectors.
You get it, right? You getting this?
I don't think I get it.
You're me. What do you mean you don't get it?
I just don't think it's clear.
It's, you know what? Okay, we'll put a part where both of us belabor this, and then I'll do a Patreon page plug at the end of it, okay?
Like right here, and people can just make fun of you in the comments?
If they want to roast me in the comments and sign up for my Patreon, they're gonna do that. And their profits shot through the roof like end of sentence. And sure, these major American manufacturing companies who moved their factories to China, India, Bangladesh, etc., could have used that money to pay their workers a living wage. And they did! Not. Shit, they did not. They used that money to expand executive salaries by 500%. But wait, it gets worse, because as the cost of manufacturing clothes shot through the floor like a drunken cowboy's upstairs neighbor, clothing companies were able to sell clothes for cheaper, which means people were able to buy more clothes. And not like an extra shirt that says "Ketchup with Jesus" or "My other shirt is a truck." The average American is now buying 5 to 6 articles of clothing every month, which is 5 times more than we did in the 1980s. The decade we did everything right. So as consumers bought more and more clothes, it started a cycle that paid executives to hire more overseas workers at starvation wages, to make more low-quality clothes, to ship them over to America, to put them in stores that told people that the color of the season is blue, baby, and you just gotta buy it. No one has landed a kickflip since 1999. And if you're familiar with my general kind of climate change shtick, you'll have guessed that I'm only talking about this because the spike in manufacturing has come at an enormous cost to the climate. When you grow cotton or manufacture plastic to make clothes, it generates CO2. You also need like 1,800 gallons of water to make a single pair of jeans, which seemed high to me, and then I did the research, and it turns out all of the sources confirmed that, including Levi's own website. So like, wow. When you process the cotton and plastic, it also generates CO2. When you transport it to stores around the world, when you buy it in an online purchase, hell, when you throw it away or donate your clothes, all of that is generating more CO2.
Are you an actor?
I'm doing a YouTube video.
Oh.
I'm not an actor, I'm a comedian, which is way worse. Sorry, thank you.
Love you too.
Love you too, James. Good to meet you. What a nice guy. All told, the fashion industry contributes to 10% of our global greenhouse gas emissions, which is crazy high, but it's also a little abstract and it's not super landing for me right now, and I promise I can do better. How about this? Take a company like Zara. Zara did roughly $26 billion in sales in 2019 and is so insanely profitable that the dude who invented Zara, Amancio Ortega, became one of the 10 richest people on the planet for selling shirts that say shit like, "Kiss me, I'm Monday." They make so much money that every other brand is just gagging to be as profitable as Zara, so they're trying to do more like what Zara does, which, as it turns out, is crank out CO2 30% faster than the nearest fast fashion competitor. Zara manufactured about 840 million garments this year. About 97% of all the cotton, plastic, and metal used in all those garments was brand new, never before used material, made specifically for those garments. Now, if you remember the intro, which feels like it was so long ago, roughly 10% of fast fashion merchandise is never sold and just thrown away, which means Zara just manufactured roughly 84 million pieces of trash out of almost entirely new material. All that cotton, gone. All that oil extracted to make the plastic, gone. All the fossil fuels used to transport all that material, wasted. And for what? So we could stock a shelf full of literal garbage. Well, sheesh, Daniel. Could recycling our clothes maybe help us out here? Unfortunately, not really. See, in the same way that it's cheaper for a company to make a new plastic bottle than it is to recycle an old one, fast fashion clothing is this delightful blend of plastic, microfibers, and cotton to give our pants that double baked in stretch. The problem is it takes a lot of work to separate those plastic fibers back out, which means more workers and less profits. And that's just not gonna work for these companies that really love money. And at a time when we can't throw out clothes fast enough, Zara, H&M, Guess, and the other fast fashion super friends are making billions of disposable garments every year. That's trillions of gallons of water, billions of barrels of oil, airplanes and freighters crisscrossing the globe to distribute these disposable clothes, burning fossil fuels at insane rates and making piles of textile waste in our landfills. And some brands will make the argument that fast fashion is the only way poor people can afford to dress well, which is maybe an okay argument if you hear it and then immediately get kicked in the head by a mule. Because if you think about it for about 5 seconds, you'll realize their argument is just, we don't want to exploit the poor people we already exploited when we ship their jobs overseas by making them pay high prices for clothes, so we're gonna go ahead and exploit the even poorer people overseas. And they really don't want you to think about the third option, which is, hey, let's not exploit any poor people and let's just reduce the profits at the top by a little bit. And also, do you remember the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire and all those human rights violations? Well, working conditions are literally worse than that in dozens of countries right now.
Hundreds are dead, hundreds more might still be buried alive after officials in Bangladesh say factory owners ignored an order to evacuate.
Some 400 dead, hundreds still believed to be missing.
Now, much better hosts than me have made much better videos than this one about the human rights violation that is just at the heart of fast fashion. And so rather than butchering all of those, I've linked them in the description and I encourage you to watch some of them. Okay, calm down, dogs. I know this script has been, cool it. I know this script has been super dark up until this point, but we have officially entered the we have a way out phase. And the big change we need to make is policy. Now, despite fast fashion having a documented history of labor abuse and environmental destruction, it is largely unregulated. Let me give you an example. A company like Gap subcontracts to a factory in Bangladesh. That company uses child labor. Gap turns a blind eye until some journalist figures it out.
How old are you? Sheila, do you go to school?
Gap pretends to be shocked. They fire that subcontractor. Gap then just gets a new unregulated subcontractor.
You're 14.
Yes.
And the whole cycle starts again.
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
Regulating the supply chain means passing laws like Germany's recent Supply Chain Due Diligence Act, which basically forces companies to assess any human rights and environmental risks in their supply chain and to establish an adequate and effective risk management system. Now, you may have noticed that a lot of those words haven't exactly been hitting the gym, and the law only forces companies to make an effort rather than guarantee they prevent the violations, but compared to America's complete lack of federal clothing supply chain legislation, they're the goddamn Incredible Hulk. France also passed a law that requires a carbon label be included on their textiles, but trying to fix a supply chain from the demand end is like trying to turn a cruise ship by leaning really hard to one side. There are a handful of state-level supply chain and manufacturing bills coming through the pipeline that have similar flavors to the German one, and you can check those out and throw your support behind them, links in the description. And if you're looking to make a difference on a personal level, surprise, you actually can. Fast fashion is very much a social movement, and you can be a leader by moving in the other direction and refusing to buy fast fashion. You can even use the 3 R's. Number 1, if you have a big event, you can rent an absolutely banging outfit, or borrow it from a friend, but that counts as the R from rent. And if you need clothes, you can buy pre-owned clothes. And I know that's not exactly starting with R, but that's the best I could do, and I'm so sorry. And also, if your clothes are damaged, you can repair them, okay? That's fun, plus you learn a new hobby. Remember, hobbies is what we used to do before we had phones. Those are the 3 R's, baby. Hey, webheads, a little note here. There is some controversy about that first R, rent. A study from Environmental Research Letters found that in some cases, the extra driving, transportation, and frequent dry cleaning makes renting clothes worse than buying new clothes. So research wherever you're renting from beforehand, or maybe wear something you already have. It looks great. I promise. And somebody please tell me a word for pre-owned that starts with R, because I honestly could not find one. Anyway, shout out to Dana Thomas, Fashionopolis, great book. And when it's time to get rid of your clothes, try your best to resell them, or go to clothing swaps, or give them to friends or family. I mean, you can still donate them as a last resort, but just know that 90% of what you donate is probably about to make really good friends with a seagull at the dump. And if you do have to buy new clothes, and you don't, but if you do, you don't. But if you do, you should buy from someplace that actually gives a shit about their supply and manufacture. So the next time future you just has to buy something, consider starting by researching the brand you're buying from, or by using a third-party source like United by Zero. Now, I offered to plug United by Zero for free, but those dorks literally paid me to shout them out. Right here, this is it. 15 minutes into a video, they paid me for this. But the bottom line is that companies are going to chase after customers. So if you as a customer place more of an emphasis on measurable sustainability, companies are going to try to cater to you. So first and foremost, push your representatives to pass laws about fast fashion and join up with organizations that are already working towards that. I linked a couple in the description, but if you have a little bit of a Google, I bet you can find some local groups in your area to join up with. And by all means, be part of the movement by avoiding fast fashion. From now on, the color of the season is there is no color, because that's a stupid idea. Unless it's blue. I have this blue suit, I got a bunch of blue shirts that I wear all the— No, there's no color of the season. That's dumb and bad, and it's gone. Okay, thank you so much for watching Climate Town. See you later. Well, that was about 4 minutes longer than it needed to be, huh? Seriously, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'm gonna keep making more videos. But if you do want to support the channel, I just started a Climate Town Patreon page, and the link is in the bio. Wait, people have to pay for these videos now? Oh no, they're still all on YouTube for free. This would just be if you wanted to like help me make them faster and better. Oh, also exclusive behind the scenes content and interviews and like stuff that gets cut from the final videos. So you want people to pay for the stuff that's not good enough to be free? I am just hoping that a few people might want to send like $5 a month my way, because you appreciate what could be described as highly researched, low budget, super try-hard climate comedy. Climate comedy? Or like edutainment? No, like infotainment. And you have to pay for it? Only the bad stuff. The good stuff is still free, right? Okay, I feel like this really went off the rails. Hey man, don't look at me. You're the one trying to get people to donate to your climate comedy Patreon page, and the link is in the bio.
I have not tried marijuana.